Hey guys, welcome to Whitney's Watchlist. So this weekend I saw Harriet, directed by Kasi Lemmons, starring Cynthia Erivo, Leslie Odom Jr., and Joel Alwyn, who I just learned is Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I knew she had a boyfriend, but I didn't really know who he was till now, so now I know. If you are subscribed to my channel, welcome back. If this is your first time to my channel, subscribe, please. And also hit that bell so that you can be reminded whenever I have a new video. If you're not already following me on Instagram, go ahead and do that now as well because I'm interesting. All right, so let's get into it. First impression of Harriet was emotional. I mean, I obviously was going to be emotional. I knew going in I was likely going to cry. I know 9 times out of 10 whether or not I'm going to cry in a film, honestly. And I knew this was going to be one of them because of just the historical nature of the film. But I think it was pretty well done, honestly. I know a lot of people had their feelings about Cynthia Erivo being cast as the lead since she's not American. I actually think that has nothing to do with her ability to play this role. I don't think that we needed an American to play Harriet just because of the historical context. I agree that yes, these roles for African American women are far and few in between, but I think Cynthia Erivo was the perfect cast for this, and she did an amazing job. I watched her interview with Leslie Odom Jr. on CBS This Morning because y'all know I love CBS This Morning. And she was talking about how she trained really rigorously for this role because homegirl is running through like the majority of the film. Like she's literally runaway slave. The physicality that she brought to this was not lost on me. And also, I heard them talking about just some of the things that they had learned as they were filming this movie, like how they communicated through song. Like there's this scene early in the film where she has to say goodbye to her mom. She realizes, oh shit, I'm about to be sold, time to go. And she goes and tells her husband, wait, before we go, I need to say goodbye to my mom. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting here like, okay, she's gonna go run to wherever and tell her mama bye, exchange some words. She literally runs over to a tree and starts singing a song of departure, and her mom knows. And I just lost it. I'm just like dying because I couldn't imagine having to say goodbye to my mother in that way, not knowing if you would ever see that person again. Insane. I think that the movie had a really good pace to it. I think sometimes in these types of films, it's like, it would be easy to feel like you're seeing too much of the same, but it had really good levels to it. You really understood her journey and you were able to stay with it in a way that was still engaging and not tiresome, but still very resilient and still very empowering. So really loved it. First, I'm gonna call out a few things in this movie that struck out to me because more or less this is a biography with some liberties, but I'll call out some things that I found very interesting. One of the first scenes were of this preacher who was standing on the porch of their master, and it was supposed to be basically like a Sunday service, and he's basically sitting there to these slaves saying, you need to respect your master, this is what God wants you to do, and you need to do this and be grateful and all these things. And I'm just like, this is some crazy ass shit. They had to like play this game as the master is like behind him on the porch watching it happen. Crazy psychological shit happening there, that you're being brainwashed to think that this is what you need to accept in life, that this is your plight and this is just good and you need to do better and be submissive. Fucking mind-blowing. I found it interesting that a lot of moments throughout the movie, Harriet Tubman is very spiritual, or at least she's portrayed that way in the film. And there were many scenes where she was found praying at a tree. And I found that really interesting. Me being a Christian myself, I didn't really realize that that was kind of what African Americans sought after, I guess, when they couldn't find a place of, you know, I guess where they couldn't find a church, they would use nature. I guess in many religions too, that they use nature in their spirituality and their religion or their religious practices. So I thought that was kind of a cool ad, that she would have a lot of these revelations or a lot of these big moments either right before or right at the tree. One of the lines said in the movie was that our stature in this community is measured by slaves. And I just thought that was, I mean, it's not like you don't know that, but, you know, to hear it said is kind of like, fuck, like, it doesn't hurt any less just because it's hundreds of years later, you know? And that was just kind of like a shocking moment for me to just hear that, and just to give you the magnitude of how important it was to these people when a slave ran away. To them, these people, my people, were worth thousands of dollars to them, which of course was like a lot of money back then. And so to lose your property was like losing crop or losing stocks. I don't know. I looked it up. I did some light research, okay? I wanted to understand what was factual and what was not in the movie. And one of the things I was really interested in is if Harriet Tubman actually had these visions, if she had actual like clairvoyant skills. And I was just talking to my boyfriend about this, and I described it closely to like Raven Simone having her visions, basically, is what would happen in the movie. She would kind of just be like, stop and just hear from the Lord, which was her interpretation, and then be able to guide her people further to safety. I was really curious. I was like, is this factual? So actually, it's kind of. So Harriet Tubman was actually hit in the head when she was a teenager by a 2-pound object, and historians believe that she might have suffered from either narcolepsy or epilepsy, because when she had one of these moments, it was really, really difficult to kind of get her out of that state. So no one's really able to say whether or not these were spiritual spells or whatever. But I mean, however you hear him, that's between you and God, you know? I mean, she saved 70 slaves by herself, like maybe not by herself, but like mostly by herself. That's a lot of people, like a lot of people. And kudos to her, because I honestly don't know if I would have been that brave. I don't. I think if I made it out, I would be not interested in turning around ever. Also, what was kind of not factual in this movie was the timeline of events. So the first time she goes back was thought to be for her husband, but actually she didn't immediately go back for her husband. She had saved a few other people before she tried to go back for him. So I thought that was interesting, because I definitely would have thought that your husband would have been the first you go back for. And although Harriet did make it to Philadelphia by herself, she initially left with her brothers. And her brothers were too scared, so they turned around and left her, which is like really fucked up, because I don't think my brothers would have did that to me. But she made it back. So I do have a link that you guys can look up some of this stuff yourself, but those were a little few things that I found interesting and wanted to just highlight. I also did not realize, or maybe I did learn about it in school and just forgot, that she was the first woman to lead an armed military raid, and she also served in the war as a Union spy, nurse, and scout. Yeah, I didn't know that. Maybe I just like suppressed that and forgot, because I'm surely that would have been brought up in school at some point, because you learn about Harriet Tubman for sure in school. As much as they like to cover up slavery in school, you at least learn about Harriet Tubman. So I want to believe I just forgot that fact. What I thought was really interesting too is that she died at 91. Like, that's really old in today's standards. So for her to have suffered some possible brain injury and still have lived to 91 is like really impressive. So overall, I'm not gonna say I'm biased because of my cultural background, but I think this is a must see. Even though Cynthia is not like belting throughout this movie, just even the little songs that she does sing are so beautiful. And I think Janelle Monáe's character was really great, which was also fictionalized, but that's okay. And just, again, the empowerment of her being a woman of a small size and having such a huge impact was really amazing. And I just was so grateful at the end of the movie, because how I felt, or how I took it anyway, I felt like if it weren't for people like her, or if it weren't for her in general, I may not even have the opportunity to sit in a movie theater and watch her on screen. I mean, I know that's like a big leap, but honestly, you know, it was the contributions of the Underground Railroad together that really made a way for African Americans to be pushed forward in society, and arguably still have a way to go. So go see it immediately, and tell me what you think below.
Check out this video, that video, or go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.